Hello and welcome to Chapter 16, Supporting Social Entrepreneurship from the Entrepreneurship, the Practice and Mindset 2nd Edition textbook. Social entrepreneurship has a definitive role in the world of entrepreneurship. The difference between social entrepreneurship and regular entrepreneurship, or just entrepreneurship, is that social entrepreneurship has a social cause to it. They are solving they're solving social and environmental problems, not necessarily focus on becoming wealthy or rich in the sense of financial gains as regular entrepreneurship would be. They're more interested in solving the social and environmental problems that affect the world, certain countries, certain environments, certain regional, certain local area. Usually, of course, they have an entrepreneurial mindset in terms of they need to get money, they need to sell products or services or fundraise money in some way in order to run. But their major impact is about social environmental problems. Of course, social entrepreneurs measure performance by advancing goals, right? They want to protect future generations. Of course, there are some wicked problems, as they say, with complex and social problems. There's no really clear solution in terms of there's so many issues affecting the world when it comes to social environmental impacts. You have environmental issues, you have poverty issues at the local, national, and worldwide levels, sustainability, equality in the workplace and education. Education itself is a problem. Access to education is a problem worldwide. Child mortality, sanitation is a huge thing, terrorism and health, and many other issues that are going on that, of course, are so complex. And how do you solve that? How do you really have a clear solution to a problem that's going to continuously happen? You can throw in money all you want, but once you put out one fire, another one may grow. So that is the complex issue with social entrepreneurship. You may have the goal to solve poverty, perhaps in a local area, but how do you do that? Because you need financial resources, but how do you get the money? And so on and so on. And the resources, the people. Of course, they definitely possess challenges and opportunities to social entrepreneurs. That's what makes social entrepreneurship a very distinct opportunity. I will say that in social entrepreneurship, don't get it mixed up with regular entrepreneurship in terms of having a mindset of financial gains when you have a social entrepreneurial goal or a solution. So make sure that you really focus on, if you're going to have a social entrepreneurship, you're consistently focused on solving social problems. Not for financial gain, but solving those problems. Social purpose ventures, right? Let's look at the types of social entrepreneurship. The first one, social purpose ventures, of course, resolve a social problem and make a profit. So you can solve a problem and make a profit, but again, remember, the profits are used for the business. Don't really go off and get into a business to become rich off your social entrepreneurship, because people will find out and say, are you really in it for the social cause, or are you just in it for the money? Social consequence entrepreneurship, right, describes a for-profit venture whose primary impact is social. So, of course, social impact, sword and plow would be a good one. Enterprise nonprofits, both the venture mission and the market impact are social purposes. Of course, any profits must be channeled back into the organization. So, of course, that's, again, venture, philanthropy, nonprofits, right? It's circled back into, that's, of course, your typical nonprofit organizations. Earned income activities, of course, venture, philanthropy funding. Again, these are other ways of, those folks that provide grants to individuals, to organizations. Hybrid models of social entrepreneurship emphasize economic and social goals. Of course, again, you exploit the advantages of for-profit and nonprofit models. Be careful, of course, with the hybrid models of social entrepreneurship. You don't want to come off as a company that or an organization that does social causes that's in it, and of course, in the background, all you want to do is make a profit. Just be careful. The last thing you want to do is say, "I'm going to solve poverty in the local area," and drive around in a brand new Mercedes, right? Because you made a lot of money from it. So, if you're going to be in social entrepreneurship and a social entrepreneurship, fit the role, fit the part, right? Again, if you're going to solve hunger, solve poverty, solve equity, fit the part. Don't look like you're working on Wall Street when you have a social entrepreneurship venture. Capital markets for entrepreneurs. Of course, social entrepreneurs need capital, just like anything else. You need money to run the organization. You need to pay people. You need a facility. You need resources. Of course, there's impact investment funds that look for a return on investment. So there are out there impact investment funds that are specifically used as capital to solve these social causes. Of course, community funds as well. There's microfinance, such as social financing. So there are financing ways to get out there to make a social impact. Another thing too, of course, with social entrepreneurs is that they can't resolve wicked problems in isolation. They have to get folks from the community to be involved, and they need they need stakeholders. And do that, of course, you really need individuals helps, organizations helps, because it doesn't make sense to launch a social venture and do it in isolation and do it by yourself. You need assistance from folks. Types of stakeholders. Discretionary stakeholders have no power or influence. Demanding stakeholders possess the urgency attribute, have both power and legitimacy. So these are the types of stakeholder that you may have. Dependent stakeholders lack the power to influence, use power to coerce, possess all three attributes. Of course, stakeholders can evolve. Connecting, collaborating is a key to resolving wicked problems. The key issue with social entrepreneurship is you need to connect and collaborate with individuals or organizations around you. You may not be in it just for social or for capital gains. You can be, but again, you want to fit the role of social entrepreneurship. You want to fit the role of what you're trying to do in society. You want to solve those wicked problems. That's going to tremendously focus on how do you do it, perhaps with very limited resources. Not every social venture is fortunate enough to gain a lot of access to capital from organizations or from big venture funds. It's not always the case. Most likely or not, you may have to do a lot with very little. Difference between social entrepreneurship and corporate social responsibility, right? Don't get those mixed up. Corporate social responsibility is basically a company, say for example, Coca-Cola or Disney, that of course companies affects environmental social well-being. So a lot of these initiatives that corporate social responsibility have, such as these big corporations, is they motivate their employees for initiatives, right? So for example, a corporation like Walmart or Disney, just for example, I don't know if they do it, but it's just for example, they may have a corporate social responsibility to lessen poverty in their area. And that's their social responsibility. So they're going to get their employees to help out with that, whether it's volunteering or probably donating money or some of those or resources. That is their social responsibility, right? It's a big organization, corporate organization that, or even a medium-sized company that has a resource. They provide initiatives for their employees to make an impact on society. Social entrepreneurs, on the other hand, need funding to achieve their goals, right? They need, social entrepreneurs are their own organizations, their own entities that need the funding to achieve this. At times, of course, they do team up with corporate social responsibility initiatives, but of course, they have to meet eye to eye and make sure that they're working together in solving this. Global entrepreneurship measures activity across 112 economies. As you can see here, global entrepreneurship necessity-based are pushed into starting a business. So that is one a huge factor. Global entrepreneurship. You can see here all across the world measuring activity that's going on uh, of, 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 of global entrepreneurship. There is, of course, myths about entrepreneurship as a male-only profession, which is not true. Uh, there is no such thing that all men dominate the entrepreneurship sector, right? Most countries have a similar proportion of men to women and other stage entrepreneurs. Women in less developed countries are more likely driven by necessity. There are many reasons why women in less developed countries are more driven to entrepreneurship than men. Perhaps the women were abandoned. Perhaps the women lost their husbands or their caretakers or the people that were taking care of them. Therefore, they had to go off and feed their families and start a venture. Other times, their husband or the person living with probably left to go seek better opportunities in a different country and left the person by themselves to feed their family, and of course had to go launch a venture because there was no way to access a job. So they had to be their own entrepreneur. Of course, there's some countries that have the same equality of men and women in entrepreneurship. What makes a country entrepreneur? Financial resources, support of government. There is a reason why the United States of America's secret sauce, that what makes the U.S. great and what makes the United States different from vast amount of countries, is the entrepreneurial ecosystem. In the United States, a lot of folks come here and want these financial resources. There is abundance of financial resources for those starting a business venture. There is abundance of financial resources. Also, the United States government is very friendly towards entrepreneurship. They definitely embrace it and want it. There are a tremendous amount of programs throughout the country, whether it's in K-12, high school, and even college, that has entrepreneurship education. There's, of course, a lot of research and development that's going on all across the United States, whether it's in corporate America or in the college and university campuses. There's a lot of research and development. That's what makes a country entrepreneur. When you have these four factors in its ecosystem, it's going to make a major impact in this country entrepreneurial spirits. You can't have one out of the three or two out of the four. You can't have one out of the four, two out of the four. You have to have all four making a major impact in order to a country to have what is called entrepreneurship. Of course, there has to be commercial legal structure. That's one of the important things. There has to be some form of legal structure to protect the company, to protect its assets. Entry regulation, it has to be sort of easy to be let in. Physical infrastructure and cultural social norms. So that, of course, is what makes a country entrepreneur. Thank you for joining on this Chapter 16, Supporting Social Entrepreneurship, from the Entrepreneurship, the Practice and Mindset, 2nd edition.